Lesnar, did you take steroids? What's going on, guys? This is United WWE coming at you with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Brock Lesnar and just the whole scandal, what's going on at the moment. You know, we do know that Lesnar returned to UFC 200 after being 5 years away from the UFC and any form of mixed martial arts. He was with the WWE. Also, earlier on, about 5 or 6 years ago, he was battling diverticulitis. So, that really held him back in his return to the UFC at the time. He kind of had to put things on a slow burner. He returned to WWE. It was a safer option for him. He could make guaranteed money and kind of work a lighter schedule. But that competitor inside Lesnar was always still there. He wanted to prove himself to the world, maybe show that he could still compete at the highest level and fight the best heavyweights in the world. So he stepped up at UFC 200, a card that was kind of in disarray. Of course, at the time, we weren't to know that Jon Jones had been pulled from the pay-per-view for failing a drugs test, and now it looks like Lesnar has done the exact same thing, but it's different really because he did get to compete at UFC 200. So I'm just going to break it down to you guys what exactly happened, and just go through some of the news that's coming out about Brock Lesnar. So basically, guys, Lesnar failed 2 drugs tests. One was done I think on June 15th, so he was out of competition at the time. He would have been training for his fight at UFC 200, but he also failed a drugs test the day of the fight or the night before. So that's really shocking. USADA, the anti-doping commission, they're working with the UFC to try get steroids and all that shit scrapped out of the sport and just binge. Get that shit out of there. Keep the sport clean. It's always going to be something that's going to be very hard to do, just like the WWE found it hard to do, and a lot of other sports. And we're seeing that the Russian national team in the Olympics, they're being thrown out because some of their athletes were tested positive for shit. And this is something that really pisses me off because you have people that are going training, going about their business, working hard for a fight. Well, you have other motherfuckers that are just like using shit to get an advantage on their opponent. And we've seen the mental effect that steroids and all this other shit can have on athletes, and just how it's a very negative thing, and it's something that really winds me up and a lot of sports fans in general. And this isn't me coming on here bashing Brock Lesnar because we know he failed 2 drugs tests. That's what we know at the moment. We don't know the extent really of it. I know that some substances have been named, some things he could have used. One of his head coaches was saying that he was using something because he has asthma, some bullshit like that. But he will have his day, whatever hearing or whatever they're going to do with USADA to see what exactly happened. So he hasn't been found guilty just yet, just that he has failed a drugs test, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. But it's interesting to see what side the WWE take on this, what they go about doing next, because he is scheduled to face Randy Orton at Summerslam. He was supposed to be at the draft at SmackDown Live, but he was pulled from that because they were kind of fearing the fans backlash, stuff like that. But it looked like he got a very positive response at the draft. I think he was drafted number 8 overall or something like that. He was supposed to be number 1 or 2, but they had to change things up because the news came out about him failing a second drugs test on the Monday, I think. So I don't think it would have been that good for them to have him number 1 or 2. I think they probably did the right thing by keeping him a lower pick. But it's crazy to think, because it was going so well for Brock Lesnar in the WWE. He'd won at UFC 200. He put on a masterclass against Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt now is going to feel proper pissed off about this with this news coming out, thinking that Lesnar was on something. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. As I said, WWE were doing so well promoting WWE 2K17 at UFC 200. They also got to promote SummerSlam, to have a prize fighter like Brock Lesnar coming back to the company after going dominating the UFC superstar. It looked really good for WWE, and it was good for wrestlers in general, sports entertainers, to say that one of our guys could go over there and beat one of your guys. It does look pretty good. But it just kind of fuels the stereotype now that all wrestlers are on steroids. I really hope this is some sort of BS and Lesnar hasn't been taking something, because he never really came across, although he's an absolute beast, he's a genetic animal. It's just I never really came across him being a guy that's on steroids. But I have to admit, when I seen him at the weigh-ins, I was like, holy shit, this guy is he's something else. And who knows, guys? I hope I'm wrong. I should say. Jon Jones failing the drug test as well. Chad Mendes, a lot of fighters in the UFC. USADA, there being a lot of money has been pumped into USADA by the UFC. They're working together, trying to, as I say, get steroids and all that shit out of the UFC. And it's an interesting time. It'll be interesting to see, will Lesnar go back to the UFC? Will they let him fight again? As I said, he'll have to have his day up in front of a hearing or a committee or something like that to see what exactly happens next. But at the moment, it looks like Brock Lesnar and the WWE, they're still like on decent terms, because at the moment he is still competing at SummerSlam against the Viper, Randy Orton. Of course, Randy Orton was drafted to SmackDown. Lesnar is on Raw, so it'll be interesting to see how they go about promoting this fight. Is Lesnar, was I meant to say Paul Heyman as well? Paul Heyman is out of contract with the WWE. Interesting news coming out of yesterday. He is out of contract with the WWE as of 2 weeks ago, I think, maybe, or 1 week ago. So it'll be interesting. Will Paul Heyman come back to promote this fight? Will they give him a new contract? But it looks like things have been stalling a bit on getting his contract agreed. Maybe there could be, maybe he's looking for bigger wages or something like that. I don't know, but you can't have Brock Lesnar without Paul Heyman, because Paul Heyman is the guy that sells the fights. Lesnar has said many times before that he doesn't want to be cutting promos in WWE, stuff like that. But I've always been surprised, because when he's on the mic for the UFC, he actually always does really well. But that's him just being himself. I think sometimes when he's in WWE, he's not up for kind of playing the character role of things and kind of promoting fights. It's just really not him, and he just hates that shit. But remember hearing the story actually that I think it was around the time he returned in 2011, and he was going against John Cena, or 2012, 2011, whatever it was, after WrestleMania 28, when he returned, and he was cutting a promo in the ring about John Laurinaitis or something like that. I think it was the contract signing, and he made like so many mistakes during the promo. And I remember hearing he went backstage and he just threw the microphone at Vince McMahon after Raw went off the air, and he said, "Never give me that again, get Paul." So Vince went about getting Paul Heyman back. So ever since then, Paul Heyman and Brock Lesnar have just done brilliant business, both in UFC and in WWE. Paul Heyman is Lesnar's I think agent in real life. So it's interesting to see what will happen next. And yeah, guys, let me know in the comment section below, what do you think about the whole Brock Lesnar scandal, the UFC 200, WWE, and SummerSlam coming up against Randy Orton. Guys, let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace.